Hello and welcome to the Nonsense Chronicles. This is Doug Sashry, and as always, I'm joined by
Rob Mendiola.
Hey Rob, a happy Wednesday to you today.
A little different today.
That's right. Sometimes we just we mix our schedule up a little bit. We don't know what day we're going to record on. If we want to put more episodes in the tank, we'll do it on different days. Or some days the interviewee has something come up and just can't
shift
make
it around
it.
a little bit.
Yeah, can't make it. And
well, this one's going to be cool, and this will be our 50th.
This will be our 50th released.
Released, yeah.
This will be our 50th episode. That's right. Yeah. And for our 50th, we're talking to Jason White. How you doing, Jason?
I'm good, Doug. How you doing, Doug and Rob?
Yep, we're doing good.
Doing good, man. Yeah, Jason is
good
with the Tulsa Homicide Division, and is it called Division or Unit?
We're the Homicide Unit.
Unit.
So we're located within the Detective Division. So we're one of many different units that are located within within the Detective Division. You know, that's like sex crimes. Well, they call it Special Victims Unit now, but like for most people that would refer to it, it'd be like sex crimes, auto theft, burglary. But we're the Homicide Unit.
Wow, yeah, and then he also is on the First 48,
wow.
which I want to call, and I have several times, and he corrected me on it, the First 48 Hours. And the reason why is because they talk about that in the description, but like you, I was raised and there was a movie called 48 Hours. Don't look at me like
48
that.
hours?
Oh, yeah, you know that with Nick Nolte and
right.
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think of more of the 48 Hours. It's like on it's NBC or CBS or one of those.
That podcast.
That, it's the investigative show that's been on forever. You know,
the journalism.
And I think a lot of people get That's it. And I think a lot of people get confused with it, and they just use that term. But you know where that term comes from? It comes from basically, getting a lead within the first 48 hours. And if you don't get a lead, then it drastically, your chances of solving it are going to go way down. Yeah. That's kind of where that comes from. It's an old thing from way back.
Yeah, that's I was slow to catch on to that show. Not that I knew it always existed. At first, when I heard the show name, I was thinking it was like a dramatic recreation, and I'm not a big fan of those. But I do like the ones where they actually go out, kind of like Cops. This is like the detective, in my head at least, this is the detective version of Cops. Yeah. And
it's the real deal.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. You kind of have to have a stomach for it.
It is. So I had to start playing catch up, and I think I'm finding it. I mean, they have some on everything like Apple and Hulu and what else? I can't remember what other app has it. Oh, A&E app has tons of them as well. So
right,
yeah, I'm rolling through all those. But man, yeah, we have so many. My wife would have loved to have been here today, but I told her no, go to New Orleans.
Well, I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to talk to her way down the line. But I'll tell you, we're the 22nd city to actually be on that show.
Wow.
We came in right behind. Actually, it was like if I was the two cities that were right before us, it was Atlanta, then New Orleans, then us, then Mobile, then Gwinnett County, which is in Georgia. And actually, they're filming right now. I'm pretty sure it's public knowledge, but they're actually filming. They just haven't hit the TV yet. But that's North Charleston, South Carolina, which I think that it'll be good because, I always kind of think that people are getting sick of seeing Tulsa, to be honest with you. But we've been on there a long time.
No,
wow,
I'm hoping y'all have more. Are y'all going to have more of Tulsa? I know Mobile is out. I think. Is that right?
Yeah, Mobile's out. They're out temporarily. I mean, and I love those guys. And by the way, they're out for right now. And I just happened to be talking to Summer Benton on my little podcast.
I saw
and
that.
She's from Atlanta. Yeah, and she's great. And she was kind of hinting that at least the detectives would welcome back the first 48. It's kind of a political thing. You'll get some depending upon the mayor or the city council because they were really gung-ho about doing it up in Milwaukee. The detectives were all about it, and the city council voted against it, which, if they really sat back and figured out the benefits of that show, and I could talk about that for hours, but the benefit of it is the fact that the number one reason why a city would want that as part of their travel brochure, it's for recruitment, and it actually puts that city on the map. But in reality, aside from the recruitment end of it, I'm just talking about the general. What I've seen is it's the relationships that we've built within the community with the communities that we work with a lot, in the rougher areas, so to speak, or, that's got to be the number one show in prison. I mean, so when they get out, they already kind of know us,
Yeah, in fact,
so,
I was going to say the habitual interrupter I was going to say that, I want to say the episode I saw this morning, now one of the defendants' names, and I'm not joking, his name was Stanky. Is that right? I think. Is it the guy that
I don't.
It was the guy. Well, it wasn't you. It wasn't you on that one. It was the other guys, and they had covered up. The guy had covered up this person on the bed, like I guess for maybe a week, with like blankets and clothes and everything else and plastic.
A deceased person.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Wow.
oh my God! But somebody on that show mentioned 48 hours. Like, wow, even they get it, But
Wow.
yeah.
Well, I got to tell you right now. So this is the 50th, at least you're putting out the 50th of this one, right?
Yes.
So that's a big deal. So I appreciate that, Doug. Thank you for letting me be the 50th release of your show.
He's
Number
been
one,
excited about it for sure.
No, that's super. I'm super excited about it. And then the other thing is that I'm honored to be on it. But the other reason is because you guys, first of all, I'm a rock fan. I love music in general, all
Awesome.
music. I like country, rock, whatever.
Yeah.
And I see that, and I've listened to a bunch of your guys' shows, and you guys really kind of focus a lot of that, which Shine Down. Yeah, that's like my number one band.
Wow.
Love it.
Same.
So stuff like that. So I think that's super, pretty amazing that
good
you probably
matchup.
know some of the people that I really. Oh yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Well,
love it.
It's just funny, man. It's networking is what I tell my kids, and the older I've gotten, the more people I've met, and they're tickled to meet me, which is so funny because I'm usually so interested to meet this person and see their line of work, whether it's music or anything. And yeah, true crime, man. There's so many people, and now I would not, kind of like the military. I'm glad that people serve, but yeah, that would not be me. I could not do that job. But I like the people that do your job. Oh my God, you have to have a special. I'm going to tell you this story because I told my youngest that I was gonna mention it, not to shame her, but when I was, my kids 32, 30, and 27 now, and my youngest one, when she was when she was little, she used to come by my room at night, and I'd have the TV set to go off, on timer, but it was always some kind of crime, show. And like she went up with her older sister and said, "What the hell is Dad listening to?" And I was going to sleep to this at night. And then it was funny. They laughed at that because when Miranda went to UNT in Denton, she was in forensics. And I was the happiest. Awesome. It was the happiest moment of my life. But halfway through, forensic, they cut out the forensic program, so she ended up getting a criminal justice degree from there. And then she
from University of North Texas. That's like the hub of DNA testing and stuff. So it's a huge location for that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then
so she got a degree in criminal justice. If that's the case, then it's what she wanted to do.
Oh, listen to this. Yeah, because I have some police friends, and they were suggesting, get work around that. You don't want to work for local. But then she ended up not wanting to be a police officer, and she went to like with, I guess you would call it loss prevention with a company, like a retail. But then which I have friends that do that are on the upper level with different chains, and they love it. But yeah, they didn't like it. Miranda did not like working retail. So what she ended up doing was she started working insurance. She's an insurance investigator now. So yeah,
okay, probably makes good money. Yeah.
But
yeah, that
no,
probably, in the civilian sector, man, that there's a lot of people that make a lot of, they make good money and there's advancements and whatever. But good for her. Good for her. I'll tell you an interesting thing with respect to me, and a lot of people that have actually, I'm accessible. Okay, so I'm one of the detectives that I don't have any problems talking to people. I've just started that podcast of mine, and I've been accessible for forever. Really, I've been teaching all over the country, even to some extent before people even knew who I was on that show. So nevertheless, I started out in the medical field back in the day. I mean, I worked in a burn center. Yeah, I worked in the burn center in Oklahoma City, and then from there I went on to surgery. So I worked basically I actually worked on a brain surgery team first, and then I went over to an open heart surgery team where I was the guy that slapped the instruments in the surgeon's hands. And I worked in the medical field for like 10 years. But even before that, I mean, I'm talking about when I was a kid, when I was 5 and 6 years old. I grew up in Southern California, pretty close to Sharon Tate's house from the Manson murders.
Oh, wow.
And when I was a kid back then, I remember going up to that house, and from there, the Hillside Stranglers were running around in Los Angeles. And I can remember at age 6 that I was like, I think I want to be a homicide detective.
Wow.
And my dad was actually a highway patrolman in California. And so my parents were kind of like, whatever. And whatever, they were pretty, for the most part, pretty supportive. And, I would start reading some of the books my mom was reading and stuff, which were murder novels, true crime. And I just always wanted to do this my whole life. So I'm kind of blessed. It just took me forever to get here, but I'm blessed. And actually what happened was it was really a couple of events kind of happened, which was, the O.J. Simpson case, that really reinvigorated, because everybody was watching the E! channel and stuff.
Yeah.
And then, and I remember taping the trial, and then I'd come home and watch it on VHS tapes, at night.
I did the same.
And then, oh yeah, and then from there, then we had the Waco. That was another reason that incident kind of made me want to be a negotiator.
Wow.
And then from there, the Oklahoma City bombing,
Oh yeah.
So I lived in Oklahoma City when that happened, of course. So that was one of those things where I was like, that's it. I'm actually going to, I was mature enough at that point to realize that they weren't going to come knocking on my door.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to actually do something here to go get this job. And so that's when I kind of made a change in my life from the medical field and went into law enforcement with the hopes, guarantee, but the hopes that they would happen,
It's service to your community.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
We would when I stopped talking about myself, I was going to ask you. Rob's laughing. When I was going to ask you, how did you start? But wow, I had no clue that you started elsewhere. And that anything in medical that can't hurt when you're going and studying, the crime scenes. But you know what? I can't remember if it was the woman from Gwinnett County, or if it was the one you had on before, the younger one. I think it was the younger one that does the on his podcast. She's part of the coroner team, isn't she?
Oh yeah, the death invest. Yeah, she's a medical examiner investigator. Wow. Isn't she great? Man, I absolutely loved her, and I was so moved. That's kind of, and you guys get it too. I mean, you have your podcast going on. And I know a lot, tons of people. I mean, especially, there have no doubt, tons of people. And that's the fun part for me, is bringing people out there that absolutely nobody's ever heard of. And I think she's one of my favorites. And actually the one that's probably my favorite next to her is the one that I met in prison that just happened to be like a trustee. I was like, this young lady she really impressed me. And anyway, it just tells you that, it reminds you and it humanizes the fact that there are good people that happen to be in different places or whatever. They just kind of get off the rails a little bit. So reminds me to, it just reminds you that there's real people out there, Yeah,
making a difference.
That are good. Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, for instance, on that deal, and I don't know if you heard it, Rob, or not, but I met some female, just chance. I was going up there to go visit with another inmate and somebody that I knew from another deal. But when I was standing there in the waiting room of the prison, there's this trustee that's cleaning windows and stuff, and she just came up to me and goes, "I know who you are."
That's cool.
It was cool. And I was
Totally
like,
famous.
"Oh, you do, huh? Yeah, you do, huh?" And she goes, "Yes, we all watch you guys in the cell block." And I knew that she wasn't even supposed to be speaking to me.
Yeah.
But from there, she ended up reaching out to me after that and told me that she'd gotten out of prison. And what moved me the most was that she sent me some YouTube video that was just amazing about her transformation and how she was doing incredibly well. And I just thought, man, she's the perfect person to have on here, because a lot of people that are out there in the listening world could actually relate to that to some
Yeah.
extent. So plus she was an RN,
Oh,
so
wow.
That's impressive.
well, I mean, she's not now, but she was then when all this
Yeah.
was going on. And so, but anyway, that's kind of the neat thing. Just corralling some of these guests can be a little bit of, as if I didn't have enough stress as it is, and then I add this other thing up there, but I have a hard time saying no. And I really, it's fun. I like talking to people. And that's the whole premise of my show, is talking to people that are movers and shakers and people that just start, blending into the workforce. I want people that stand out, and people that are really making a positive impact in the world. And I mean, both of you know the type of people I'm talking about.
Yeah,
And
they're not.
That's what fascinates me.
They shouldn't be that hard to find, but sometimes it is. It's hard to find those people.
And we've had people on here before that weren't music or something, or maybe they were, but they just had a really interesting story that just really interested us. Somebody that made an impact that I thought, wow, this is fantastic. We had a guy on early on that a guy named Chance McLean that they do these interesting, and he's been doing it for years now, but they do like a kind of like a biography of your family member or somebody, and they come in and they do some serious.
It's a full out production, film production.
Yeah, it's just amazing how they do that, because these days, back when I was a kid, you had nothing. You hear some pictures, but you can have video, and they talk to friends of theirs and everything. Yeah, so anything like that, anybody that contributes to somebody smiling or something good in life, we're all about, man.
Oh yeah.
So the production.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
Go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead, Rob. Go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to ask, like, how big is the production on the like when you're going and you do like a set and you go into to your location? Like, how many cameras and crew are there?
Well, we've had 2 camera people that have been embedded with the city of Tulsa since the beginning when they started filming here. And they started filming here in 2014. As a matter of fact, they started filming here July of 2014, and my case was the very first case to air, and it was the very first case that they even started filming on. So try having an adjustment of one day you're driving by yourself or with the guy that you're working with to now having somebody back there saying, "Hang on a minute, stop." Yeah. Don't answer that question because we're at a stoplight, because they want you moving,
right? And
all this other stuff. And really, when it first started, it was kind of like, they were constantly stopping you, going, "All right, so what are you thinking about right now? What's going through your mind?" And it was almost to the point where I can remember going, "Hey, dude, you're gonna have to just give me a minute." You know what I mean? I've got to think about what in the heck I've just listened to. Yeah. And I think what happened was, and one of the things that we talked, so there's 2 camera people. Okay. And they're interesting in and of themselves. Between the camera people, and we've had different ones that float through because of vacations or whatever. But we know most of the ones that are the regulars that float through here. And, some of them, one of the regulars that films with us right now, she filmed on Deadliest Catch for years. Oh, wow. Or Naked and Afraid. Yeah. One of my favorite camera people that's not here. He doesn't come through very often, but man, I love this guy. He's like one of the most interesting human beings ever. And he films on Naked and Afraid all the time, Wow. But he's just a super interesting guy. But for me, it's interesting just talking to these people going, "Hey, what's it like filming on Street Outlaws?" Because there's a guy that came through here once from Street Outlaws. And I was like, "What's that like? What are those guys like? I want to hear about them, you know?" And to get the behind the scenes stuff. But like I said, they've had these people that have been here full time since 2014. Wow. And they live here. And one of the main rules that we had is we just had a rule of, hey, listen, we don't want a bunch of random people coming through here. Yeah. We want some stability. And so they listened to us, and so for the most part, we've had pretty much we've had probably 5 that are the regular ones that we have come through here. But I can tell you right now that the 2 camera people that we've had here for the last several years, you could have told them back then, hey, by the way, you're going to go to Tulsa and you're going to end up living there for a long, long time. And they would have told you were crazy. I mean, and once they're here, they're like, we love it here.
They're in. There's
All the camera people love it when they come to Tulsa in reality, because they're like, this place is great. I had no idea that Tulsa was this cool. Now, of course, for the viewers, they're watching it going, I don't want to go to Tulsa. It looks terrible.
Yeah.
You know, don't go to a Quick Trip. You're going to get killed.
yeah.
All of this crazy stuff.
Yeah, you're only
And
highlighting
in reality,
the bad.
yeah, and in reality, you know, just to give you kind of a statistical idea, we've been filming since 2014, but since 2016, we've had 555 homicides here in the city of Tulsa, and we only have 28 open cases.
Wow.
So we've solved like 96% of them, and that's
awesome.
If it's not the best in the country, it's got to be in the top 5. I don't know who's surpassed that with those kind of numbers, but so it's been a good thing for us. The show's been good. We don't get paid to be on there, but it is kind of fun whenever you go, at least for me, when I'm teaching in different places and stuff, and most of the people in the audience know who I am already. So that's kind of fun.
So did the teaching gigs, was that opened up by the series?
Well, I started teaching a bunch of stuff in reference to crisis negotiating. And in that the main thing on that was basically an incident that a guy ended up taking his son hostage, his 5-year-old hostage.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up negotiating with him for a good part of the standoff.
Wow.
And one of the things that really kind of attracted people throughout the country that were crisis negotiators was the fact that there was some texting. I did a lot of texting with this guy, and it wasn't the first in the history of crisis negotiating, but it's one of the first ones. I mean, it's one of those that really kind of, it was unusual. It was an unusual situation, and ultimately he ended up killing his child. We didn't know it at the time, but we still were able to get him out, you know, but so that kind of started my teaching off, and I've been doing that for a number of years, and that's given me the blessing of being able to go from coast to coast and cool. Canada, you know.
Wow.
But I also teach death investigation stuff, and in some places it's, you know, once you get into that, it's hard to get into that circuit. But once you get into it, then you get to know certain people, and it's kind of neat because I've gotten to meet a lot of amazing people, just like what Doug talks about, collecting people. Well, you know, I've met, you know, I've had dinner with the main negotiator from Waco, and I know him, and he's going to be a guest on my show, and then many other people that are just fascinating individuals that you kind of meet at these conferences, and they're
they got some
you know who this, and you know who the standout ones are. You know what I mean? You know the ones that are legit.
I got one name that I have to ask you if you've ever run across, because I've read a couple of his books, and of course the TV. Have you run across John Douglas yet?
I haven't met him personally, but I have met profilers, and you know, of course, for your listeners, John Douglas is the originator of the profilers in Quantico, and actually their first, for sure, I'd love to talk to him. I've just not ran across him specifically, but I and that's what's cool. You've heard of Henry Lee? Have you ever heard of Henry Lee?
Yeah, oh yeah, the doctor. Yeah, hell yeah.
Well, he's like an Asian guy that
blood doctor.
He's a criminalist.
Yeah.
Well, he's a criminalist, and he's been on the OJ case. He was on that staircase. He's been on, high profile stuff, they'll bring him in to talk about crime scenes and stuff like that. Well, I mean, I just messaged him, and it took forever for him to get back with me. But he's like, yeah, I'm in Hong Kong right now teaching, but just talk to my secretary, and we'll make it happen.
Wow, that's cool.
And this guy's like a world-renowned, you know, criminalist. And he's one of those top tier guys, you know, that you're sitting there going, this guy's not even going to respond to me, you know, and which always drives me crazy because in my mind, you know, it's kind of like, and you guys know what I'm talking about. It's kind of like when you have people that are on Twitter and stuff like that, and you're like, hey, these people there's no reason why these people can't acknowledge some of these people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they're so big and so they're so huge that they can't even put a heart or respond or a thumbs up. Come on, you know?
Yeah, sometimes
give me a break. But
you just have to find a.
But at least you went for it and you asked him. So
yeah, I mean sometimes.
No, I did, and you got to try.
You got to try, yeah.
Yeah, and usually I found, you know, because that's what I basically do for a living is shake hands, and it's basically there's some common ground which you have with most people. It could be just the littlest thing that could bring a smile or something like that, and That usually works. But yeah, man, I'd love to. Oh, I'd love to talk to John Douglas one day. Yeah, he's the incredible stuff. You know, just the BTK stuff. What he told them. You know, and before they caught it. You know, him. God, yeah, just so much. You know, it's funny when we were driving up to Fort Riley in Kansas one time to go do a deal for the troops over there, and my wife was with me, and I didn't tell her this, but I steered off the road in Wichita, and I said, "Okay, don't get out the car, but I'm going to stop." That's where his house used to be, right there. So, yeah, because you can. I mean, they have so many things you can find that on. You know.
But, are you talking about BTK?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, I would have stopped too. I mean, come on. But I'm like I've been up to Holcomb, Kansas, you know, where the house is from the Clutter house from In Cold Blood.
In Cold Blood, yeah, that's
and
right.
that happened. Yeah, and that happened in 1959. So I've driven down the driveway. I've checked that out. I'll tell you, like the La Bianca house from the Manson murders, that still exists in Los Angeles, and I've told all these people that I teach to all the time, all these academy classes and stuff, and I'm like, listen, if that thing ever comes up as an Airbnb or a VRBO, I'm renting that thing because I want to spray some luminol on the walls just to see if it would still luminesce.
Oh wow!
How cool would that be? You know?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's that's what Rob and I were talking. Is just like these days compared to older days where you didn't have the tools that you have now. It's like, why are you going to commit a crime? And I guess most of them are done out of passion.
Meaning you're going to get caught.
Yeah, you know, you have the ones that are done out of passion, and some people are just, you know, but. Yeah.
Well, most of them haven't planned it out. I mean, most murders are not Dateline mysteries where they've really planned this stuff out, right?
Sure.
Most of these are impulse. And then the other thing is too, and I just had a case from January the 1st, New Year's Day. And I even told the suspects while I'm interviewing them, and it took a while to get to it. It was a hard case, but when I was talking to them, I'm like, listen, man, like 3 years ago, you guys would have got away with this. There's just no way. 3 years ago, I would have not known who you guys were.
Yeah.
But there's cameras everywhere.
Oh, I know.
That's another thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you'll see
everywhere.
Yeah, like I think I've seen it on y'all's show too. But yeah, somebody was somewhere, then they go down the road and they track the kid. They get the cameras. You know. Hey, that's one thing that I want to ask you. Did you see American Nightmare yet on Netflix?
What's it about?
The kidnapping case in Los Angeles. I guess.
They thought it was fake,
or
like
California,
like Gone Girl. I think was it California?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that one, but if it's good, I need another one to watch. So
yeah, it's pretty good.
It's like a 3-parter.
Okay,
and it's but it's a true story. And what happened was, man, look. That was the question I was going to ask, and I'll tell you why. Let me ask the question, but don't answer it yet. I'm going to tell you why. The question I had was, how do you know when you're interviewing somebody, when you just know that they're guilty in your heart, how do you stop from being overzealous? Because what they did, it looked like they told him he failed.
The polygraph.
Yeah, they told him he failed the polygraph, and the guy was just, I know you did it, you know, blah, blah. I mean, he was...
They were pretty convinced that the guy was involved in the kidnapping.
Crazy convinced, and that guy had zero to do with it, man. I was like, this is like Richard Jewell all over again. Now, I know look, we're sitting here like armchair quarterbacks. We're not in the deal, but yeah, how do you judge that?
Well, I'm going to just be real with you. I don't know all the time. I mean, and if any detective says that they do all the time, then they're lying to you.
Yeah,
because
it's a good answer.
Things are not always what they appear. We just had a murder that happened at a shopping mall where this cat, I mean, at the mall of all places, you know, and it happens right outside the front doors of this place. This is the society we're dealing with these young people today, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll just shoot and kill this dude out in the front entrance of the largest mall in Oklahoma. Well, anyway, there's a guy on the video cameras walking by moments before that that's wearing 2 different colored shoes. And then at the scene, and of course, there's only like, you know, a handful of cameras in this entire freaking mall, which is insane. But then right by the scene in the blood, there's one shoe that's sitting there. And it matches the shoe that the guy's wearing, the two different types of shoes. So we find out who that guy was. So he comes in, they're interviewing him. The detectives are interviewing him, And they're like, you have to know what's going on. Your shoe is at the scene. He goes, man, I'm telling you, dude, I gave my other shoe, the one shoe that's missing that he can't tell us where it's at is, oh yeah, I gave that to a friend of mine, and I gave it to him like 2 months ago. I can't remember his name. So everything's pointing to this guy, and it turns out it wasn't this guy. And it wasn't his shoe that was.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's just the crazy stuff. It's the crazy stuff. And I always tell people, I'm like, listen, and it's not, and listen, I'll just tell you this right up front is I'm not somebody that's going to come into a room. I always tell cops when I'm going there to teach, I'm like, listen, I'm not an expert. Okay. I've been doing this. Actually, I think I've worked the third most homicides in the history of Tulsa, number 3. And out of that, and I still tell people, I tell them, listen, I'm not an expert. Be very, very cautious of people that claim to be experts in this world, because we can't even keep up with cell phone technology, for God's sakes. How in the heck am I going to be an expert at any of this? I'm not, compared to the normal juror, I'm an expert. But in reality, things change so much. So the thing I tell people is don't get too tunnel visioned in. Be open-minded.
That's smart.
And
because
and because here's the thing. I don't want to be on Netflix one day because I ended up arresting the wrong guy, and I don't think anybody else does either. You know, I'm not interested in 97% sure, or I don't want to go in front of a jury and go, we think so, we're pretty sure. No, I want to be 100% sure, and I have to be able to sleep at night. You know?
That's a great policy.
So it is, man, because listen. I'm not saying that I don't want to put some. There's times when we make arrests on people because we're pretty confident the person did it. But I've seen this happen where we got a warrant for somebody, and then the guy come up. He was up there pounding on the doors. It was me and the guy that I worked with a lot, Ronnie, and it was his case. And the guy's pounding on the doors wanting to talk to us. And after we talked to him, we're like, yeah, this guy didn't do it.
Yeah,
and he had a warrant for murder. So we ended up telling him. We took him home and said, don't open the door for anybody. And if somebody comes to the door that's the cops, you call us immediately until we can get this thing resolved and get that warrant recalled. But that's the way just because I don't want this guy to go to jail, and that's happened a couple of times, but we were able to figure it out real quick, etc. But I was going to say this, I want to say this is kind of my philosophy about the whole thing and us being on TV and such, which I said all the time, that's such a blessing. I mean, it's so cool to be on television where people, we have a fan base, which is kind of cool. It's super cool. I mean, because there's a lot of people that hate the cops, but I think that it gives us an opportunity where people can see that we're real people and we actually really do care. And I've always felt that we need to be somewhat of the ambassadors. I won't say who this guy is, but I've heard about it when I'm teaching elsewhere. There was a guy that's on TV all the time, and they're like, yeah, he's not very nice. And I'm like, what? I mean, that drives me crazy because I'm like, how the heck can you be out there on TV and yet you're not nice and approachable? I mean, you kind of put yourself in a position where you should be an ambassador to the profession. Yeah. And be that example for everybody, and those that can follow your example to be that much better for other people. It's just my thing, but
that's a good outlook on it.
Yeah.
No,
there's
well, you never signed up to be famous, right? So it just kind of happened, right?
No, it's I think it's good. I think it's always been good for police to immerse themselves in their community as much as possible, and
but for the public to see like what you deal with, like in a real case scenario.
Dude, to watch them.
It's not pretty and it's not easy.
No, to watch the people that sit in front of them and lie and lie, I'm like, oh my God, yeah. I'd say you pull your hair out, but it's too late for that. Yeah, but that's God, how do y'all?
Well, I'll tell you something that's funny. So my younger brother, I only have one brother, and he's younger than me. He's like 6.5, almost 7 years younger than me. So back in the 90s, and of course, he's like he's like in his early 20s, maybe, right? And he ended up he became a game show host on Nickelodeon.
Oh, wow.
So my brother, I was sitting there going, how cool is that?
Yeah.
My brother, because he just doesn't take no for an answer. He just kept bugging Nickelodeon about trying to be on this show, which happens to be arguably one of the worst shows in the history of Nickelodeon, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, God.
He still got to do it. And then he
cool.
got to do like 6 or 7 appearances on that show where they dropped the green slime on your head. Yeah, I think it was called Figure It Out. Well, anyway, how cool is it? And so he got to do that. And then now his brother, who neither one of, on 2 different separate stage or channels,
Yeah.
and ended up making it. You know,
That's
it's just kind of, or
pretty
making it to
awesome.
this point where we're on TV and people know us. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
you know, it's
you
kind
got
of
show
cool.
business in your DNA then.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, man,
That's
I
pretty
guess,
cool.
well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's another question I have for you too. Is like, we talked the other day, and I know that, like, they don't, the shows don't all, the one in, when they do the Tulsa episodes, they don't always do you. They have they have other guys that they run with.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, what's the deal with y'all? Are you always on call? I mean, how does that? You know, I mean, I guess if it's a bad enough crime scene, but how does that work?
No, well, basically, we've got 10 detectives in our unit, and when we get a homicide, when the guy gets a homicide that happens to be up to be the lead on the next one, then once he gets one, then he goes to the bottom of the list. Somewhere halfway in the middle of that, that's when, let's say, I got one on January the 1st. I went to the bottom of the list, and then we got just slammed with murders. And so I'm going, and I'm like, no, because what happens is that I kind of trickle up to the middle part where now I'm the backer. And so when we were supposed to do this yesterday, was it the day before yesterday or yesterday?
Monday, yeah.
So, I mean, I think it was, yeah, when we were supposed to do this Monday, well, what happened is that I got, and this is the worst thing ever. I mean, I'm literally feel myself slipping off to sleep, right? I mean, this is like 11:10 at night. I'm slipping off to sleep and my phone rings.
Wow.
And I'm like, I mean, you have that moment where I already know what this is. It's going to be the worst night of my life. And then from there, I'm literally up, and we work a 24-hour shift.
Wow.
Jesus.
Literally, me and this guy we just couldn't stop. I mean, it was everything was just happening and happening and happening.
Does the
and
adrenaline
then
kick
at
in?
my age, well, we have your moments where you catch your fourth and fifth wind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to
But
say that part
does
recycles
it
a
still
few
excite
times.
you though when this all goes down?
It not when you get the call,
No.
and not when you're there
Yeah.
usually dealing with the stupid. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
Because most of these are revolving around stupid.
Right.
But
Sure.
what is fun is when you start getting stuff that you can work with.
Yeah.
And you know, at first I was like, I heard, oh yeah, this is going to be two roommates. One of the roommates kills the other one. And you're like, oh, okay, good. This is at least it's not going to be gangster.
Yeah.
At least it's not going to be a million search warrants. At least it sounds pretty promising. And then all of a sudden you hear nobody speaks English, and then you're like,
Okay.
okay, this is turning bad.
Yeah.
The suspect's gone. He's probably an illegal alien. Good luck finding him. You know what I mean?
God,
So all of this stuff, and then it starts going into that situation. So now we're in a race against time to catch this guy before he ends up making it to Mexico, because then you'll never find him. Right. And so it was kind of one of those type of cases. So we had to keep going, pressing kind of deal. And unfortunately, we ended up catching him. Somebody called in on him. We just kind of put the pressure on. Somebody saw him walking down the road, but
thank God. Yeah,
they didn't know. Well, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, man. Finish that story.
I was just going to say the crazy thing is that somebody ended up calling in a tip saying that they saw a female walking down the road carrying a baby, and it's not even anything close to that. This guy's walking down the road, and it turned out to be a guy. He's not carrying a baby, but somebody called it in. The cops rolled up, and he took off running. We were lucky enough to get this guy, but he didn't have it. He probably didn't have a nickel to his name, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
But anyway, what were you going to say, Doug?
No, I was going to say the show I watched early this morning was one where y'all went down to, apparently the network must be really, that's another thing too, that it wasn't in the 70s, like where somebody could be committing these, the sex crimes in 3 neighboring towns in California. I was watching the other day, and but they didn't have the information between the units like they did. Well, now they do, because I saw you going down to you went to Edmond and talked to that guy, and that's funny. How quick does that work? Do y'all put a wire out on the police line somewhere, and everybody's looking for someone?
Yeah, well, pretty much. I mean, there's fusion centers, basically, is what they call them. So most of the states have them, and you can put something out on, like, to the Oklahoma Fusion Center, and you can tell them, hey, listen, I want you to put out this vehicle description and this suspect description, and make it to Oklahoma only, or Oklahoma and all of the surrounding states, kind of deal. So we can do that, and that helps. It's just, it's kind of amazing to me, and it's mind-boggling to me. You know, as many cars that we've had just disappear from crime scenes that belong to the victim, and you're like, there's a couple of them I can think of that we've never found. You know,
Wow.
they're just gone. You know,
Yeah.
and it's like, how in the world can we
Yeah.
not find this car? It's somewhere
pretty
in this
incredible,
world, and it is. But no, that's what we do, and that's how that works. And one of the things that I'll just tell you, just in the time that I've worked in homicide alone, I mean, just to give you an idea as to the advancements in the world of forensics, by the year 2027 here in the state of Oklahoma, I mean, we're mandated by the state. So what does that mean? That means that it will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically handheld DNA scanners.
Wow.
That literally,
Wow.
the way they describe it to me is that if you had like a trail of blood at a scene, you can scan that blood right there, or a blood droplet, and then you can go scan the guy that's sitting in the interview room and see if it's a match.
Oh,
Almost
wow.
instantaneously. I'm still trying to wrap my head around
Yeah,
that.
that's incredible.
And I'm in the business, and I'm like, are you serious? We can really do that? But this is technology that probably has already existed for a long time from the military, if you think about it.
Wow. Now,
It's cool and scary at the same time.
if you have him in if you have the suspect in the interrogation room, which, by the way, the interrogation room, every time I see this, I'm like, I wonder if he can ever walk out, because, man, you know, I would be claustrophobic in there nonstop. But do you have the right to swab if somebody's in there? Do you have the right to swab, or can they say no?
If they're under arrest.
Okay.
If we're arresting them, that law just changed about 4 or 5 years ago in the state of Oklahoma. Each state is different. You know, I would assume that you can pick one of those states that, you know, maybe a little softer on crime, that it probably isn't going to happen. But in the state of Oklahoma, we if they're arrested for a violent crime, we are allowed to get a DNA swab, but it's not to be used to compare against all crimes ever. You know, it's to be used for this specific crime. And the reason why we're able to do it is because they argued that it's no different than a fingerprint. You know, we fingerprint people when they get arrested. So and when you think about it in terms of that, it really isn't any different than getting somebody's fingerprints. It's their unique identifier, you know. And so that's kind of interesting. And if you think about other things, I'll tell you this, because to go back to some of the advances and stuff, and a lot of this goes back to 9/11. You know, because of 9/11, believe it or not, I mean, they've been able to identify 1,649 people from that tragedy, you know, of the people that were killed there. And a lot of it is because some of those people were, you know, basically vaporized, you know, so it's kind of difficult in those instances. However, because of 9/11 and because of really a lot of efforts from like New York City, their medical examiner's office, their forensic laboratory, etc., that you can take, if you have, let's say, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say that you have a rape murder, okay? And then when you think about rape murder, you're thinking, okay, that this guy probably left some form of DNA behind. Mm-hmm. And you can tell that this is probably going to be part of this crime. Well, you could take that. You don't know that the DNA is going to be good enough or not, but you take that sample of whatever. You can send that off, and you can send it to a lab and send it with a check for like almost $5,000, and then they'll send you back, if it's got a good enough DNA strand, they'll send you back a picture of what that individual looks like at 25 years old.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. Now let me ask you. That's incredible. But what about the? How's the turnaround? Yeah. How's the turnaround time now on DNA when you know, it seemed like it was forever, but
well, it was. I mean, it used to be forever, man. It was months and months and months. And nowadays, all right, let's say that we have a murder, and I told you we're going to have that scanner that's almost instantaneous.
That's instant.
But like right now, let's say we have a murder right now, and I need the DNA done pronto. You know, we're talking, and I'm not talking about like getting a facial picture of this guy, right? Mm-hmm. I'm talking about just getting see if there's DNA on there. We're talking about probably, if I needed it like really right now, I could call the lab and they could see if they could maybe fit it in another batch that they're going to run. And I might be able to get it theoretically back within the week, maybe 2 weeks. Yeah, it takes them actually, if they were if they were going to sit down and just do it like right now, they could probably get the DNA back in 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Literally.
I was wondering.
And this is from the lab, but you're not going to get that.
Yeah,
well, it's just a matter of them sitting. it's just a matter. We have our own lab, fortunately, at Tulsa.
Oh, okay.
It's going to take. If we didn't have our own lab, to have another lab do your DNA for you, it could cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is.
Go ahead.
Well, the point is that if you're sitting there, and you need it like right now, you could. Well, Osama bin Laden, when he was killed, they had his DNA back within two or 3 hours, and I was like,
quick.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, how the heck did they get that back that quick? And I already know because he's big time, But I was like, wow, that's super quick. So I know that they can do it.
Yeah.
And so it just takes time for your smaller labs to have that ability to be able to do that stuff. And I'm not a DNA person. I still have a hard enough time wrapping my head around understanding half of that. So
yeah,
but anyway.
No,
And that's come a long way. Now they have touch DNA too now.
Well, he talked about 9/11. It's just like Katrina or COVID. Some of the worst tragedies in the world, World War II, created the most innovation. It had to be because you had no choice. And
you're absolutely right.
Now let me ask you this: like the Tulsa lab, does the Tulsa lab also help the town of Miami? What they don't call it Miami in Oklahoma. What do they call it?
Miami.
Miami. Yeah, it's pronounced Miami. But do y'all help those towns? Do they all go to y'all or no?
No, we don't. They go to Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, because I actually I've got a case. I've got a cold case that I'm looking at that I unfortunately I had, and it's not that they're not good. They're great, but I have to wait longer. And I have a case that I'm comparing somebody to some stuff, and it's through their lab, so I can't be bugging them like I do at Tulsa, going, hey man, what's the deal? Let's go, Whereas I have to kind of wait and be a little bit more patient with the state lab. It takes them longer because they're taking in samples from all over the state, other than Oklahoma City and Tulsa, because we're the big cities. We have our own labs, but yeah, the rest of the state, you kind of fall in line and have to wait, kind of a deal. So,
I kind of figured.
And it's fun. Isn't it cool? But I got to tell you, Doug. I'll tell you right now. If I could be a rock star, if I knew how to play an instrument, or I knew how to sing, and I could be a rock star, I would change it. I would change with them in a heartbeat.
God, dude, yeah.
How cool would that be?
Yeah, like I said, look, you're a rock star in your own realm, man. You know, like I said, as you've learned, just like I have, that. There's always somebody that you're shocked that's more interested to meet you than you are to meet them, and that's.
I'm fortunate to be a part of a great team, and you know how that is. I mean, you could have one bad apple on the team, and it spoils the whole barrel. So, fortunately for us, we've got guys that everybody in there. It wasn't always like this. I mean, it's kind of evolved into this, but we work in a team where I count on these young guys to sift through this technology stuff, man. I was born in 1970. I can't wrap my head around some of this stuff.
Same
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
those kids today,
especially
man.
cell phone stuff. Yeah, they grew up with a phone attached to their hand. They know everything about apps and all this stuff. And I'm like, what? What do you mean this app? And how does this work? And they it's like it's nothing to them. So I count on that. And we have a team of people that they work the cases if it was their own, and that's unbeatable. And that's how we solve these cases, really.
Yeah.
It's not just me or anybody, although I enjoy the interviews. That's my favorite thing to do. And that's where we solve cases from getting out from behind the desk and knocking on doors and finding people that saw things and finding those people that are willing to step up. I mean, it's rarely solved by DNA and fingerprints. It's getting out there and getting to know people. And that's one of the advantages. And like I said, the show, when you're out there on the streets, people don't hate us, or I wouldn't say they hate the general cop, but they don't look at us as the normal cop. And this is, believe it or not, this has actually happened where somebody goes, I'm out there looking around and they're like, man, you're a real cop? I thought they just brought you in for the show.
That's funny. Yeah.
No, we're the real deal. We've been here forever.
Yeah.
But if you were to come up there and hang out, basically we're some of the most laid back detectives in the whole division. I mean, we're laughing a lot and carrying on and sometimes making fun of each other to the point where somebody gets their feelings hurt occasionally, but in all good fun. And probably that's an unintended consequence of just some of the stuff that we see all the time, where we're just kind of
you're trying to just
more
keep
laid
it
back.
kind of keep your mental.
Well, it sounds
Stability,
it sounds to me like Tulsa has a well-run police department. In other words, there's
With
some
lots
good
of
harmony.
tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what
I
it
like to
takes.
think so. I really
Yeah.
do. And really in part, the boss that we've got right now, it's great because he lets us do what we need to do. He's
Yeah.
not in our business. I mean, he lets us
That's
do.
cool.
He respects what we're doing, and he knows what we're doing. He'll tell you, I don't know what they're doing,
Yeah.
which is kind of funny. But he's like, yeah. Actually, when he took over the position, he was kind of, the news media was like, "What are you going to do?" Because the other guy had retired, and the other guy was well seen on the media and stuff, and he's like, "Well, I mean, nothing's going to change. I mean, they could stick a mustache on a cinder block, and nothing is going to change, really."
That's awesome.
That is good.
Yeah,
man.
because if you think I'm doing anything here, you're wrong. It's
Yeah.
these guys that are doing it. So, and that's cool that he's like that. And he if we need something, he'll get it for us. And that's what we need. So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun, and that's everything, man. I'm still having fun going to work, and
That's good.
that's what you want. I mean, not every day. I mean, I have my moments, believe me.
Sure.
But and so does everybody else. But for the most part, we most of us like one another, and we can generally work with, we have our favorites and so forth. I mean, if I told you, oh yeah, it's no problem, whoever I'm working with, it's just the same every time, we're just great. No.
Well,
I mean, we mesh better with certain people, kind of deal.
let me ask you this: from I guess it was from the young girl in Oklahoma City, the young lady. Was she? Does the scene happens? Then the coroner has to go in first and do all this stuff. Then y'all go back in.
No, basically, and this is the thing. When you watch some of these infamous cases, I think of the West Memphis Three. That's the case. By the way, I'm trying to get one of those kids, one of the West Memphis Three, to come on my show. I would love to talk to one of those guys.
Good.
But anyway, when they talk about, there's a lot of criticism and stuff that happens on some of these cases, like, oh, the medical examiner's office wasn't called for 5 hours. Well, that's normal.
Oh.
I'm not saying that they didn't do it perfect. Okay, you're not supposed to touch the body. You're not supposed to alter the scene, and that stuff did happen in that particular case. But what does happen is that the crime scene, the officers show up, they put up the crime scene set tape, and then they call the crime scene detectives. The crime scene detectives get there, and they do a lot of stuff before they even call the medical examiner investigator.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why, they photograph, they measure everything, they don't collect anything like evidence-wise. They just photograph and measure everything, and they videotape the scene, and all that stuff takes time. It takes a lot of time. Then on top of it, that's when they call the medical examiner investigator. They show up because they're there to check the pockets. They look in the pockets. They document what kind of medication might be there. They'll take their own photos. But then they call the transporter, and sometimes we don't need that body moved just yet. We need it to stay there. The only time when we may call them is when we need something done like quickly, like quicker, is I need to get into this guy's pockets to find out what his ID is, because that's a big part of it. I mean, the way I look at it is, the way I tell people is that it's like a 1,000-piece puzzle. Once you find out who the person is, that's about 200 pieces to that puzzle. And the reason why that's so crucial is because then you can start doing victimology on that person. Then you call the families. Then you find out who knows them, because 95% of these murders are committed by people that know them.
Yep.
They know what's going on. They know the drama. The girlfriend knows what's been happening. They know who he's made mad. All of this stuff. And without knowing who this person is, you're not going to be able to get very far, because you don't know any of the details. And then so once you're able to do that, things along that nature, then that may be a reason we may call the ME earlier, or things like that. So and it's different in different states. I mean, if you were to go to New York City, the death investigators from the medical examiner's office they're physician's assistants. Wow. You go here, and they're high school graduates. There's a totally different roles and responsibilities in different places in the country for that position. So in New York City, those people, they do bloodstain analysis. They actually go out and knock on doors. They do a lot more investigative work. That I'm not dissing or disrespecting the Oklahoma ones. It's just a different way of mentality and how they do things.
Yeah.
Whereas they may do more like in the rural areas, but in a big city where you got big departments and we deal with this all the time, we do all of that stuff, So they may have to do more of that hands-on stuff when it's in a smaller jurisdiction. that's not used to it.
Do you have to put do y'all actually put the Post-it note next to each casing or blood stain, or do y'all do any of that kind of stuff?
We use markers. I mean, they're numbered markers, and they do that. They'll use numbered markers basically because it's just easier for them to be able to count the items and refer to them when they're taking photographs of them. Because every photograph, which could be in the neighborhood of 500 photos at a scene, you got to say, okay, this is a view of this. It's very tedious work. I was a crime scene detective for a year and a half, and trust me, it's for a special person to want to do that job.
Yeah.
Because number one, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. You're always going to tend to make somebody mad at some point because you didn't do this or that. And it's very, very tedious work. I mean, you have to have a special personality for that job. They're a little bit more quiet, and they don't. You're listening to me. I am not a quiet person. I am a talker, a communicator. I want to know what happened and stuff like that. Those individuals. Well, I appreciate it. That's that's what makes us all really good because we're good at communicating with people. That's really the key. Yeah,
if you weren't good at that, you wouldn't get very many answers. Obviously.
You know what
No.
I think we need to have another episode later on with Jason again because I just think that we could probably talk for 60 hours.
I'd love it.
Yeah.
But I do have before we let you go today, we definitely have to promote his podcast. Now it's a video podcast.
Oh wow! Okay, cool.
And if I'm gonna get the call.
Yeah, he's used to being in front of the camera, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the call letters wrong. So Jason, you got this WGZB or WB?
No. Well, and listen, I know we're running out of time, but I call it a radio show because you know why? Because it sounds cooler. Number one.
Yeah. It's
number
cool.
Two. It's KGRA Digital Broadcasting, and it's out of Utah, and basically that's where the company's out of. But the show is called Into the Fire. Oh, and cool. If I got like 2 minutes, I got to tell you this real quick.
We got plenty of time, dude. You can talk as long as you want.
Okay. So I got to tell you something. I got to tell you something funny. So since we know mutual people, right?
Right.
You know some people from Saving Abel. I know Scotty. And so I know Scotty. I know Stephen Pulley, his drummer.
Oh yeah.
So now they're both back with Saving Abel. Well, anyway, before that, I knew people that knew them through Hy-Vee or whatever, and there was a song that I heard that I loved. Man, it's called Fire. And so
yes.
I was just like, I love that song. And when I listened to it, I thought that's perfect for my show. When you listen to the words, I'm like, that's exactly what I'm visualizing for this show. And so, of course, I reached out to them via the people that knew Saving Abel, and it was looking great. And they were like, "Oh yeah, sounds like it. Oh, this is great." They were honored that I was asking. So I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And I said, "I'm not making any money on this, so
yeah,
hint, I'm not looking to pay."
right.
But we could both benefit from this. People will be turned on by they'll know your song. They'll be turned on to your band from that. And et cetera, and it just all of a sudden it fell through. And I really don't even know the example or reason ultimately that it just didn't do it.
I can assure you this: it had nothing to do with you. It was other factors going on at the time. Yeah, I know that, and so not because of your situation, but just because of the other situation I know of. Yeah.
Oh no, of course. So listen. So here's the deal. So I had to make a decision about the name of my show like pronto, and I thought Into the Fire. Here's the song's Fire, Into the Fire. It's going to be perfect. I had to make it like right now. And so I did, and I went with it. And then that happened. And then I was like, oh, all right. Well, I still like the name of the show, even though
it's still cool. Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool. Into the Fire. And so I thought it was cool. But I was like, oh, what a bummer. But then Scotty Austin, who's now the again singer for Saving Abel, he said, and I'll give you the censored version. He's like, screw that. I'll write him a song.
Hell yeah.
And so, I thought, man, that's priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's even better, and so I saw him up at St. Joe's, Missouri, and he let me listen. Here I've been a fan of rock stars my whole life. And here I am talking to him, and I'm sitting in his van listening to the song that he just wrote me. You know?
Oh, that's cool. So
I'm
you
like,
already got something
you
down.
have no idea. You have no, yeah, he did.
Oh, cool.
He worked on it with his record producer, and he goes, and those guys treated me like they were, we've known each other our whole lives. You know what I mean? So I was like,
well, that's awesome.
this is, it's not done yet, but even then, I'm not pushing him I want it done right. So he's like, man, I'm going to get it. I'm going to do this. I'm like, take your time. Just, it's no hurry, because who knows, we could branch off from this network and go to another place eventually. I don't want to, I'm learning the ropes right now, but I thought that was a fun story.
That's very cool.
And I appreciate you letting me telling you.
Oh no. And I have to also give a little shout out to our friends at Hy-Vee and, Cheryl and Barb, who they went down to Tulsa, and like they told me 1 million stories. Cheryl will, like I told Rob before, her last name is Harms, but she would never harm anybody.
Yeah.
She is the sweetest person.
They're the best. They're the best. They're the best. I'll tell you what, I'm so blessed that I've met the both of them. And that's what it's about, man. It's meeting great people, and that's what I like I like having them in my stable of people.
Yeah,
that's
people that are
bonus.
genuinely good people.
Yeah, collect them, man. That's what I told you. You gotta be.
That's right.
You keep the good ones. But I can promise you,
I collected you, man. When you told me about the spice, I was like, I've got it in my drawer.
Oh,
He's
man,
my friend, and I've told people, I'm like, I've even mentioned it a couple of times on my show.
I know
I'm like,
that guy.
See this?
Yeah, he has. He has actually mentioned it. Yeah, and it's greatly appreciated,
it's
man.
Cool.
But
it's cool.
I promise you, if you'll come back, we'll definitely have you on again because, like I said, there's a million questions that we could ask, and
hey, I'd be honored, no problem.
And you've been a great guest, but we will do this again, and this is our 50th episode, and
awesome.
Rob, thank God for Rob. He puts it all together, man. He's
thanks, man. Appreciate that.
He says. He gets run over by me talk wise because I have diarrhea of the mouth, as my mother would say. But it gets done because of him. And thanks so much for joining us today, and everybody.
Oh, my pleasure.
Please subscribe, like and subscribe, and check out Into the Fire because it is a fantastic show and it's very informative. I got stuff,
and we'll post that on the podcast. Is his little radio thing?
Yeah, we will put those links.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I want to say are you 8 episodes in now or 7?
This week is going to be week 9. This Friday, live at 7 p.m. and it's going to be a juror of one of my most infamous murder trials that I happen to meet by just complete chance at an airport coming back from New York City where I was teaching.
Wow, you do this live.
It's going to be interesting. Well, it'll give you an interesting perspective. You know what I mean? A totally different perspective. And by the way, she was a not guilty. So I was like, what? What do you mean? I've never lost a jury trial, but so she was originally a not guilty and then she came around, but it makes for a fascinating discussion because once she finally heard some of the real stories, she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know any of that. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the way the court works. I mean, you
can't tell
there's procedures.
Yeah,
but she's going to be an interesting person to have on there, and she's an exec at an oil and gas company. But I thought she'd be a fun one, and
cool.
That's the biggest challenge is getting people coming on a Friday night. Most people have a life.
Well, I'll try to put it into my calendar. And,
definitely.
Please do
get on there. Yeah,
and I always share that.
I appreciate you guys. I really do. You guys have been the greatest. Thank you. I've had a blast, and I appreciate it very much.
Stay safe out there, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
In your position, stay safe. And thanks for joining us on the Nonsense Chronicles.
Later.
See ya.